This is the world at its most spectacular, the most memorable, most exotic, most magical must-see destinations. Selected by the world's most seasoned travel editors. These are the best of the best. Experience the most amazing natural wonders in the world. A river plummeting spectacularly down a mist-filled ravine. A breathtaking canyon carved into the earth. Monumental glaciers carving into a sapphire sea. Each destination thrills the senses. They all share a natural beauty that celebrates our magnificent planet. The world's largest arid desert is a vast area of sand dunes, mountains, and rocks. To the people who have made it their home, this is not a desert, but many varied deserts. Spanning nearly the entire width of North Africa, the Sahara Desert is one of the most fascinating and starkly beautiful places on Earth. In the western regions of this vast parched tract, apparently endless vistas of sand dominate. Wind-blown ripples snake across countless dunes, creating a hypnotic effect. However, 70% of the Sahara is a rocky landscape. The whole desert feels boundless. The highest temperature ever recorded in the Sahara was a staggering 58 degrees Celsius. In summer, the daytime temperature is more usually around 35 degrees, made more oppressive as heat radiates from the sand. Wood baked by the blazing sun emits a deep earthy scent. But the fragrance is fleeting in this parched desert. Only the hardiest of plants can survive here. Along with animals that have adapted to the harsh conditions. Manipulated by the wind, the dunes are constantly on the move. While animals have adjusted to the desert, people can easily become disoriented. There are no signposts, nothing to mark a route across this wasteland. Roads too would be useless. The shifting sands would quickly obliterate all traces of them. To the inexperienced, navigating the desert is challenging and potentially deadly. But the desert has a small population that has mastered this domain. They have flourished in the Sahara for centuries. They are the Tuareg. These skilled navigators can find their way between areas of sparse vegetation by reading the sun and the stars. The Tuareg wear distinctive flowing robes. The blue of their clothing symbolizes wealth. And over the years, the rich indigo dye stains their skin. For this, they are sometimes called the blue people of the desert. Only men, and only after they reach marriageable age, are completely veiled. The veil protects them from sandstorms and the harsh sun. And covering everything but their eyes is said to ward off evil spirits. They journey from oasis to oasis, following routes that have been passed down through generations. For 2,000 years, the Tuareg were masters of the Trans-Sahara caravan trade. They linked the cities south of the desert to the Mediterranean, carrying the essential commodities of salt, dates, and millet, and luxuries like gold. Even today, the Tuareg continue to guide their camel caravans across the baked landscape. Life in the desert, as elsewhere, depends on water. Rain does fall here, up to 10 centimeters a year, but usually in sudden downpours. Tuareg familiarity with the environment leads them to places where desert aquifers find their way to the surface. At these natural springs, there are opportunities to replenish supplies and refresh the body. There is something timeless about a camel train at sunset in the Sahara. It's as if history has stood still here, offering a rare chance to peer back in time. The desert night is magical. As the sun sets on the Sahara, the air begins to cool rapidly. Surprisingly, a fire is needed. Nighttime temperatures are often more than 30 degrees colder than during the day. And on a winter night, the temperature frequently drops below freezing. The desert can get very cold and very dark very quickly. But it remains an impressive place for those with the opportunity to immerse themselves in its magnificence. In the far northern reaches of the United States, nature is resilient, epic, and at times a little unpredictable. From craggy peaks to frozen tundras to lush glacial bays, Alaska is a land of contrasts. Alaska is a vibrant place, teeming with life. Much of its terrain is rugged and unforgiving, and yet it is startlingly beautiful. Alaska is so vast and remote, it can only be appreciated through fleeting glimpses. It's summertime. Daylight stretches for almost 20 hours before night falls. Heavy cloud cover is common. Menacing low clouds trap enough warmth in the air to start the slow process of melting chunks of ice that have fallen from the great glaciers. Above the icy bays, mountains encircle alpine lakes. Fields of wildflowers create a sweet fragrance that permeates the fog-filled air. But when the clouds clear, the brilliant polar sun opens the rugged terrain for closer observation. In this rough landscape, powerful creatures are on the prowl. These 300-kilo bears should be treated with caution. Although they can run at speeds up to 40 kilometers an hour, if cornered they are likely to stand their ground, being too big to climb trees. When fixated on satisfying their appetite, they are too preoccupied to care about other creatures. Bears are omnivorous, preying on mammals and fish, as well as consuming plants and berries. In shallow waters, a sea otter skims along the ocean's surface. It's protected from the cold by a thick coat of oily fur. Farther from the shore, another marine mammal is doing an acrobatic exhibition of its own. The breach of the humpback whale is spectacular, as it lifts its entire body clear of the water. Weighing over 30 tons, these giants of the sea come north for the summer from their winter retreats near Hawaii to feed in the krill-rich waters off the Alaskan coast. When they exhale, a pungent, briny odor emanates from their spout. By an icy bay, a polar bear hunts for its next meal. But the harbor seals lying on the ice floes seem unconcerned. On the open sea, the odds are in their favor. They can easily outswim any polar bear that might try to approach. The largest land-dwelling predator, these bears hunt seals mostly by stealth and alone. The young stay with their mothers for 2.5 years before they're mature enough for an independent life. On a rocky precipice, sea lions rest, soaking up the afternoon sun. But they must be wary. Just beneath the surface, a pod of orcas stalks the coastline. With their speed, agility, and ability to work as a team, orcas are among the most efficient hunters in the sea. Alaska is also home to a wide variety of bird life. One of the most magnificent is the bald eagle. They hunt small fish in the pools and inlets that are fed by melting glaciers. At their leading edges, glaciers are dynamic. They carve dramatically into the dark waters. Alaska's glaciers have been in retreat for at least 250 years, and global warming seems to be increasing the process. As the glaciers retreat, upland tracts of land are revealed. They are soon colonized by mosses and lichen. Seeds spread, and new plants spring to life. This untamed frontier is rugged and impressive. In the land of the midnight sun, the flora and fauna leave an indelible impression on everyone who is able to observe them. Greatest waterfall cuts through a stunning plateau. In Africa, on the border between Zambia and Zimbabwe, the Zambezi River plunges over 100 meters at Victoria Falls. Surprises are in store for the traveler. The area is home to a wide range of creatures, seen in a diverse combination of habitats. Many of the continent's most iconic animals live within sight of the Zambezi. Gracefully soar overhead. National parks in both Zambia and Zimbabwe protect the plateau above the falls, helping to protect wildlife. Flowing between the two countries, the river seems docile at first. But as the pace of the current picks up, rapids punctuate the wide river. And then, without warning, it drops. Victoria Falls. It's the largest curtain of falling water in the world. Crashing down into a deep ravine, the roar of water echoes through the canyon. At the bottom, the water plunges through a narrow gap, leading to a series of gorges. imparting momentum to the river on its journey to the Indian Ocean. The falls are nearly 2 kilometers wide, and they plummet 108 meters at their highest point. The crashing water creates a column of mist that is amazingly enough to sustain a rainforest along the riverbank in a part of Africa that otherwise supports a savanna landscape. A dazzling array of colors spreads out on both sides of the massive gorge. Plants, berries, and exotic birds thrive. Breathtaking rainbows arch across the gorge created by the waterfall. The Scottish explorer David Livingstone named the falls after Queen Victoria when he came across them in 1855 during an expedition down the Zambezi. But the local name, Musiotunya, seems more apt. It means smoke the thunders. The sound rumbles through the valley and can be heard many kilometers away. Nearly 550 million liters of water tumble over the edge every minute at the height of the wet season. Downstream, there's enough water to generate hydroelectric power for parts of Zimbabwe, Zambia, and South Africa. But here at Victoria Falls, the water entrances the visitor. The mist diffuses pastel light across the entire valley, and the falls are bathed in soft colors by the radiant sun. With all the unforgettable wildlife that thrives here, and the brute force of water on full display, Dr. Livingstone captured their spirit when he wrote, "Scenes so lovely must have been gazed upon by angels in their flight." A spectacular gorge offers a window into prehistory and a testament to the transforming power of water and time. In the United States, the Colorado River cuts through Arizona, creating the Grand Canyon, an iconic symbol of the American West. Nearly 450 kilometers long, the canyon is almost 30 kilometers across at its widest and attains a depth of over 1.5 kilometers at its deepest. It's living proof of the power of water erosion. Much of the canyon lies within a national park, one of the first created in the United States. Around 5 million tourists visit every year to gaze out over vertigo-inducing heights or descend to the river below. A rare California condor soars over the valley. They have the widest wingspan of any bird in North America. Critically endangered, there were only 22 of them left in 1987, all in captivity. A breeding program has brought the species back from the brink, and about 150 are now flying free. A medley of small creatures has adapted to this bone-dry environment. On the canyon rim, it is often dry and cool, and winter temperatures can fall below freezing. Even where trees get a foothold, conditions can be tough. They must be exceptionally hardy to survive in these surroundings. Age is relative in the Grand Canyon. There are millions of years of history here, stamped into the walls of the gorge. The trip over the canyon's edge takes you from the present back to the distant past. Scientists are not sure exactly how long it took to form this chasm deep in the plateau. But they agree that over millions of years, a combination of erosion by the Colorado River and the uplift of the sedimentary rocks it ran through carved out the Grand Canyon. The rift reveals layer upon layer of geological history. Almost half our planet's entire history is out in the open. The oldest rocks at the bottom of the inner gorge are thought to be nearly 2 billion years old. The limestone at the rim of the canyon has been dated at a mere 230 million years. The sedimentary layers visible today present one of the most complete geological records on the planet. Consequently, the Grand Canyon is a major research resource for geologists and paleontologists. Marine fossils indicate that this whole area was once part of a sea in the early Paleozoic era, some 500 million years ago. Today, many visitors trek to the bottom of the valley on foot or by mule. Others travel downstream by raft. The river helps to create a more humid climate than at the canyon rim. It's significantly hotter as well. Little waterfalls fill the air with a refreshing mist. Even though parts of the river may be more tranquil, they're still involved in the act of erosion. But that attrition has slowed. The Colorado flows through the Grand Canyon more languidly than it once did. Upstream dams control the volume. The cutting out of the canyon proceeds at a slower pace today than it did in the past. The Colorado River rises in the snowmelt of the Rocky Mountains. It travels southwest for hundreds of kilometers before reaching the soft rock of the Colorado Plateau. But by the time it reaches the Gulf of Mexico, it is little more than a trickle. The mighty river has been tamed. Its waters have been diverted to irrigate fields. Its power illuminates cities. The indigenous people of the area have long used the river. Ancient inhabitants built villages along its bank. Communities were established in the canyon more than 12,000 years ago, using the river to sustain their crops. Some ancient ruins are still visible. And the canyon itself is a powerful character in the myths and legends of the region's Native American peoples. Many of them consider it a sacred place. Their ancestors left their marks over the centuries, and these decorations are a reminder of the transitory nature of life. At dusk, light from the setting sun filters down the canyon and reflects off the river. It flows like liquid gold between the rocky walls. Spanish soldiers explored the Grand Canyon in 1540. After that, it was largely disregarded by European settlers for over 200 years. Sometimes the Grand Canyon offers delightful little details. Or there's the treat of a chance encounter. But it's the grandeur of the place, the magnificent view from the canyon rim, that leaves a lasting impression. Artists have tried to capture its elusive beauty on canvas. Composers have been inspired by it. Photographers have crossed the globe to get just the right shot. But the Grand Canyon should be appreciated in person. Stand on top of its breezy heights. Hike down its steep walls, wade in the cool waters of the Colorado, to understand that the Grand Canyon is truly in a class by itself. A vast, untamed alpine landscape offers some of the greatest mountain views in the world. On Canada's southern border in the province of Alberta, Banff National Park boasts nearly 7,000 square kilometers of forest, lakes, and meadows. Situated in the majestic Rocky Mountains, this is a magnet for hikers, canoers, and birdwatchers. They come for the unparalleled vistas and to enjoy the stimulation of cool, clean air and the refreshing spray of tumbling waterfalls. The Canadian Rockies are 120 million years old, some of the oldest mountains on the planet. Older by far than the 40-million-year-old Himalayas. Banff was Canada's first national park, established in 1885. Since then, it has had to resist pressure on its boundaries from logging and cattle grazing interests. At the top of Banff's snowy peaks, frigid temperatures and sheets of ice last through the summer months. A quarter of the park is above the tree line, and from up here there are breathtaking unobstructed views of this alpine paradise. There's an abundance of wildlife within the park, including Alberta's signature mammal, the bighorn sheep. They have no problem navigating the snowy granite passes. They share the park with other familiar Canadian wildlife. As the winter ice melts, water begins to rush again. Geese prepare for their breeding season. Rivers plummet down valleys, zigzagging through rapids and cascading down waterfalls. By springtime, wildflowers are in full bloom. The new shoots provide sustenance for a bull elk. Only males have antlers, which are shed every year. They regrow rapidly in the spring, up to 3 centimeters a day, and can reach more than 2 meters in length. He will spend the spring and summer bulking up for mating season in the autumn. The creatures of Banff are re-energized by the warming days, as are the tiny buds. Opening up in the shadow of monumental peaks. And at the heart of the park is one of the world's most stunning alpine lakes. Lake Louise is rightly called the Jewel of the Rockies. The breathtaking and unworldly turquoise water owes its color to glacial melt. As glaciers formed, they scraped the rocks in their path, trapping tiny mineral deposits of quartz and feldspar in the ice for thousands of years. This is called rock flour, and it is released into the lake as the glaciers melt, creating a stupendous shade of blue. Green flower-filled fields, known as the Sunshine Meadows, contrast with the alpine lakes to create an impressive color palette. At Banff, the brisk alpine air is invigorating, and the ancient peaks, mountain lakes, fields, and valleys create one of the greatest panoramic views in the world. The richest collection of life on the planet is found in an incredible jungle pulsing with color. Spread across the borders of 9 South American countries, the Amazon rainforest covers an area of 5.5 million square kilometers and is the largest rainforest in the world. From the air, it's a thick carpet of green. But up close, a series of smaller environments is revealed. From the high canopy to the forest floor, the Amazon is a technicolor extravaganza. It's the single richest collection of plant and animal life on the planet. 1 hectare can support over 700 kinds of tree and 1,400 types of plant. 1 in 5 of the world's bird species breeds in the Amazon rainforest. Scientists regularly discover and classify new species of plants and animals here. The sounds of the rainforest blend together to create a tropical symphony. The best way to enter the rainforest is along one of the Amazon River's thousands of tributaries. The Amazon rainforest has been called the lungs of the planet. It produces more than 20% of the world's oxygen. So continued deforestation is a global problem. The short-term financial gains from logging, cattle ranching, and agriculture have to be balanced against the long-term health of the planet. Further south on the continent, there is an aquatic gem. The Iguazu Falls are close to where Brazil, Paraguay, and Argentina meet. They are one of the most arresting sights in the world. For nearly 3 kilometers, the wide river Iguazu meets a set of faults in the basalt rock and spills over a series of massive cliffs. Unlike other waterfalls that explode as a single event, there are more than 270 individual cascades, some falling more than 80 meters. The Devil's Throat is a U-shaped torrent of 14 waterfalls that forms the border between Argentina and Brazil. It's the most imposing spectacle of all. But each distinct waterfall has its own character. Together, they form an impressive vision that lingers in the memory. In Australia lies a geologic curiosity that is also a sacred monument. It's one of the country's most iconic and familiar sites. Near the geographic center of the continent, Uluru emerges from the wild and rugged terrain. A fitting symbol of the nation's heart. The Australian desert, the outback as European explorers of the country's interior named it, is hot and dusty. Creatures are few and far between. The monument is over 400 kilometers by road from the nearest large town, Alice Springs. But the journey is worth the effort. Uluru at sunrise is one of the greatest visions in all of Australia, and one of the most sacred. Rising over 300 meters above the dry brush, the lone sandstone formation known by its Aboriginal name Uluru is a sedimentary island mountain. It's all that remains of a mountain range that has been lost to erosion. The geologic structure extends 2.5 kilometers below the desert plain. The rock is more than 500 million years old, consisting mostly of feldspar and quartz. iron-bearing ores in the sandstone have oxidized, creating its distinctive deep rust color. At different times of the day, the colors reflected from the rock face change dramatically. By mid-afternoon, it glows a dusky orange. But as the sun begins to set, minerals absorb more light from the red end of the spectrum and it becomes a fiery crimson. The wardens of Uluru are the Ananju Aborigines. They believe that the rock, like all features of the Australian landscape, tells the story of dream time, the sacred record of how things came to be. They have been passing on the Dreamtime story for nearly 50,000 years, making it the oldest continual spiritual tradition in the world. The Aboriginal people believe there was nothing on Earth until their ancestors awoke from a deep slumber and rose from under the earth. They traveled across the land and called the various totem creatures into being. These creatures also walked the Dreamtime Trail and assisted in the creation of the Earth. Serpents left behind tracks as they slithered across the land. Frogs filled those tracks with water from their bellies, and the lizard spirit traveled the earth, forming mountains along its path. According to Dreamtime, Uluru's rugged geology is the result of scars left behind from ancient battles fought between animals. And its caves were carved out by burrowing totem animals during the early days of creation. But Dreamtime is so much more than storytelling. It contains the entire natural history of Australia. Dreamtime describes and dates major geologic events such as deforestations, volcanic eruptions, and rising sea levels. And amazingly, today's geologists have found that for at least the last 10,000 years, the Dreamtime record is often accurate. Uluru is at the very heart of Aboriginal beliefs. The essence of Dreamtime can be felt strongly here. It is the meeting point of history and mythology, where age-old traditions survive, connecting us to an older, more spiritual time. Fire and water collide to form a string of tropical islands, both beautiful and mysterious. Near the heart of the Pacific Ocean lies Hawaii, an archipelago that has long welcomed visitors. And those visitors are able to find an amazing array of landscapes, creatures, and vegetation. Beaches of every hue are washed over by azure waters. Emerald palms sway in the wind. A unique assortment of plants and animals await discovery. And Polynesian hospitality greets the visitor. Despite its relatively small area, less than 30,000 square kilometers, Hawaii offers a wide range of geography and ecology. It's one of the wettest places on the planet and one of the most volcanically active. The volcanic chain that makes up the Hawaiian archipelago contains hundreds of islands and is more than 2,000 kilometers long. But America's 50th state is usually thought of as 8 main islands. Hawaii offers the unique experience of approaching an active volcano and viewing firsthand the continuing creation of an island. Blazing hot lava melts a channel through the mountainside. Where it meets the sea, cool ocean water solidifies it and the island grows. Within the Earth's core, a volcanic hotspot produces a constant stream of molten lava. But as the continental plate shifts to the northwest, the legendary hotspot, home of the Hawaiian fire goddess Pele, stays in place. When the lava flows underground, it leaves behind large sunken calders. Eventually, seeds and spores find their way into the crevices of the hardened lava. The resilient plants that take root are called colonizers. They are the first step in creating the lush Hawaiian landscape. It is remarkable how such small islands can have such vastly different geographic features. Measured from their bases far below the surface of the sea, the mountains of Hawaii are higher than Everest. Winter snows are not uncommon up here. Descending a single mountainside, there are rolling green hills, a dry, breezy plain with cacti, and a dense tropical forest, complete with a cascading waterfall. Because Hawaii is so isolated, with diverse ecologies, many of the species that have evolved here live nowhere else on Earth. This makes Hawaii a repository of beautiful plant and animal life. And thanks to its isolation, Hawaii lays claim to more endangered species for its size than anywhere else on the planet. They include the Hawaiian silver sword, known locally as a hina. Each plant can grow up to 50 years, but only blooms once in its lifetime. Its name reflects another novel feature of the islands. The Hawaiian language uses only 12 letters, 7 consonants and the 5 vowels. That's fewer than any other language on Earth. The islands are famous for their incomparable beauty. A beauty that has been enjoyed by the Polynesian people who first came here over 1,000 years ago. They traveled thousands of kilometers in outrigger canoes across the Pacific to set foot on the pristine shores of Hawaii. Fortune shines on anyone who comes to visit these islands. For the experience is unparalleled on this magnificent planet. was a staggering 58 degrees Celsius. In summer, the daytime temperature is more usually around 35 degrees, made more oppressive as heat radiates from the sand. Wood baked by the blazing sun emits a deep earthy scent. But the fragrance is fleeting in this parched desert. Only the hardiest of plants can survive here. Along with animals that have adapted to the harsh conditions. Manipulated by the wind, the dunes are constantly on the move. While animals have adjusted to the desert, people can easily become disoriented. There are no signposts, nothing to mark a route across this wasteland. Roads too would be useless. The shifting sands would quickly obliterate all traces of them. To the inexperienced, navigating the desert is challenging and potentially deadly. But the desert has a small population that has mastered this. Each destination thrills the senses. They all share a natural beauty that celebrates our magnificent planet. The world's largest arid desert is a vast area of sand dunes, mountains, and rocks. To the people who have made it their home, this is not a desert, but many varied deserts. Spanning nearly the entire width of North Africa, the Sahara Desert is one of the most fascinating and starkly beautiful places on Earth. In the western regions of this vast parched tract, apparently endless vistas of sand dominate. Wind-blown ripples snake across countless dunes, creating a hypnotic effect. However, 70% of the Sahara is a rocky landscape. The whole desert feels boundless. The highest temperature ever recorded in the Sahara . This is the world at its most spectacular, the most memorable, most exotic, most magical must-see destinations. Selected by the world's most seasoned travel editors. These are the best of the best. Experience the most amazing natural wonders in the world. A river plummeting spectacularly down a mist-filled ravine. A breathtaking canyon carved into the earth. Monumental glaciers carving into a sapphire sea. Domain. They have flourished in the Sahara for centuries. They are the Tuareg. These skilled navigators can find their way between areas of sparse vegetation by reading the sun and the stars. The Tuareg wear distinctive flowing robes. The blue of their clothing symbolizes wealth. And over the years, the rich indigo dye stains their skin. For this, they are sometimes called the blue people of the desert. Only men, and only after they reach marriageable age, are completely veiled. The veil protects them from sandstorms and the harsh sun. And covering everything but their eyes is said to ward off evil spirits. They journey from oasis to oasis, following routes that have been passed down through generations. For 2,000 years, the Tuareg were masters of the Trans-Sahara caravan trade. They linked the cities south of the desert to the Mediterranean, carrying the essential commodities of salt, dates, and millet, and luxuries like gold. Even today, the Tuareg continue to guide their camel caravans across the baked landscape. Life in the desert, as elsewhere, depends on water. Rain does fall here, up to 10 centimeters a year, but usually in sudden downpours. Tuareg familiarity with the environment leads them to places where desert aquifers find their way to the surface. At these natural springs, there are opportunities to replenish supplies and refresh the body. There is something timeless about a camel train at sunset in the